Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Today's topic is Inference Solutions on Cisco Tropo. Most of the sessions today is going to be a demonstration, just looking at the interface and how to build applications, and we'll start with a few early slides just to set the context. So my name's Callan Chabella. I'm the CEO of Inference Solutions. Today we'll be looking at an overview of the solution on Cisco Tropo. This is of Studio on Cisco Tropo. A little quick discussion about the architecture and then moving straight into the demonstration. Now we try and keep these webinars nice and short, so if you have any questions, feel free to send those through using the questions panel, and then I'll respond to those after the actual webinar is finished. Okay, so for those who are not familiar with Inference Studio is a software as a service platform. It's designed for building complex IVR, outbound, and lots of other things. Essentially, complex call handling scenarios is what we specialize in. Our tagline is revolutionizing IVR, so if you're familiar with interactive voice response, and you'll be very familiar with the classic sort of press 1, press 2 type menus, all the way through to complex speech recognition and so forth. These are the kinds of things that you can build with Inference Studio. One of the really compelling things about Inference Studio is it's completely delivered via a web browser. So you can log in, you can build, deploy, and go live without using anything other than a web browser. Studio is very well known for its emphasis on simplicity and speed. In fact, internally we like to say that you can have an idea of what you'd like to build it, deploy it, and ring it within 90 seconds. So it is very, very fast. It's excellent for trying new types of services, excellent for prototyping, and going all the way through to full production. It's currently resold by dozens of carriers around the world. Most of those are in North America and Australia, and there are many end customers on the platform, and we process millions and millions of calls every month for those customers. The focus for today is on the newest version, which is version 4.1, because 4.1 can now run entirely on Cisco Tropo, which is a CPaaS platform. So for those of you who are not familiar with CPaaS, essentially what it is it's basically a set of communication APIs that you can trigger. Now, typically in a CPaaS environment, you are writing code. You are building applications using APIs. You're writing software, and you're integrating it into, say, your iPhone app or your Android app or something like that. In the case of Studio running on Tropo, essentially what we've done is we've got rid of that code layer and allow you to use the Studio native interface, which is just a web browser, to build anything that you like and have that powered by the Cisco Tropo CPaaS platform. So there are a few CPaaS platforms out there today. Obviously, everyone would know of Twilio. There's Plivo, Nexmo, and Tropo. Tropo is the one owned and operated by Cisco. Now, one of the reasons we picked the Tropo platform to support is because they have fantastic support for speech recognition, and a lot of our customers and the solutions they build require speech recognition. And so it's a really good fit with the Tropo platform. Now, just showing you on this slide how it actually fits together. Most people, if you've used Studio in the past, would be familiar with this bottom diagram, this bottom part of the diagram, where Studio is actually connected to the carrier core network. Calls are coming into that carrier. They're being routed as SIP calls to our platform, which has its voice gateways, and then we are actually landing the call on a cluster of Broadworks media servers. So Broadworks is the actual call terminating platform which is taking the calls. Now, as part of that, we need to provide all of the speech recognition, we need to supply all the text-to-speech licensing, we need to supply all the voice biometrics licensing, and so on in our own private cloud infrastructure. And then we make that available through the Inference Web Management Server. Now, the difference with Tropo is that in the case of Tropo, Tropo can provide all of those PSTN numbers that you're going to ring in on as well as all of the necessary licensing as it relates to speech recognition, text-to-speech, and so on. And instead what happens is, rather than the Inference platform receiving phone calls, we receive a series of Tropo API calls. So we just get request after request to our application server, and we essentially render the caller experience on the Tropo platform itself. Okay. Now the nice thing about that is that if you're familiar with Inference Studio running in the traditional environment, it looks exactly the same when you run it in the Tropo environment. All that happens behind the scenes is we change what we output in order for you to run in either mode. So that so if you're familiar with Cisco, if you're familiar with Studio already, there is really no learning curve to trying it on Tropo as well. And of course, it's all managed through the same web browser. Okay, so now I'm going to move straight into a demonstration. So I'm just going to break out of the PowerPoint pack and go straight into just a standard web browser. So I'm just running Chrome here on my desktop. And I've created an account, and in that particular account, I've set it up to render Tropo output, as opposed to voice XML, which is normally running on a Broadsoft media server. So I've got my account, it's called Current Tropo, and I'm going to log in. And the first thing you'll notice, if you're familiar with Studio, is it looks exactly the same, because nothing has changed. Even the URL that I'm logging in is the same. I'll see a list of the applications that I have access to. In this case, I've got access just to the one application, which is Inference Studio. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm actually logging in as a service provider. So this is going to show me a list of all my end user accounts that I've got. And the one that I'm going to use is this one called Tropo Test. Okay, so now I'm logged into the Studio interface. And just as with the standard version of Studio, it looks the same. You have the dashboard across the top of the screen, and then you have your list of scripts at the bottom part of the screen. Now, the dashboard tells me that I've currently got 2 scripts that I've developed. Now, these are just IVRs that I've built. I've got one service number free, and I've got one service number currently in use. Now, if you're very familiar with Studio, you might notice that the service number that I'm showing here on the screen is actually here in orange. And that's really the only difference. An orange service number is something that's running on Cisco Tropo, whereas a blue service number is something that's running on a typical Inference point of presence powered by a Broadsoft media server. So this orange number means this phone number is actually supplied by Tropo to this account. Okay. Now, just as with Studio, everything revolves around this concept of scripts. So I'm going to go and create a new script and go up to the menu at the top here, click on Script, and click on Add to create a script. I'm going to give a script a name. I'm going to call it Webinar. I'm going to give it tags. This is a new feature in Studio 4.1 where you can tag your scripts, and this allows you to filter them and sort them, which gets very important when you have hundreds and hundreds of them, as some of our customers do. I can pick the language that I'd like to deploy in. Now, one of the reasons, as I said earlier, that we selected Tropo as the CPaaS platform to underpin the Studio 4.1 is its support of speech recognition. So just like with Studio running on Broadworks, you can pick, in this case, English or Spanish, but you can pick many other languages as well. This account's just set up for English and Spanish. I'm going to click English. And the same, just like with the regular version of Studio, you can pick what language you'd like to, what voice you'd like to have for your text-to-speech voice. And on Tropo, there are over 100 different TTS voices that you can pick from, so quite a rich list. And I'm going to click on Add. Okay, so there it is. My script's been created, webinar. I've tagged it as demo. I don't have any service number assigned to it yet. If I want to go and assign a phone number to that, I literally just go to Action, Map Number, and it'll show me the free numbers that I've got. And you'll see here the orange one, it says Tropo. So you know this is a Tropo number, and that is now assigned to that script. Okay, so if you're calling into the Tropo cloud platform now, and you call in on that number, it will route to the Inference application called Webinar, and we'll try and load this script. Now, this script right now has nothing in it. So I'm going to click on that and we'll build the script out. Now, one of the popular features in the regular version of Studio is the use of templates. So allowing you to build applications very, very quickly. And all those templates are also supported under the Cisco Tropo version as well. So here I am going to select a particular template. I'm going to click on Simple Net Promoter Score Survey as just a typical use case that you might want to run in an IVR. So this is a post-call survey where you're going to ask a Net Promoter Score question, and click on Continue. So what's happening now is that we are provisioning everything needed to run this application on Tropo. So this includes all of the prompting, includes all of the call flow, includes all the databases to store the answers and so on. And just like previous versions of Studio, it presents it on the screen in a graphical manner. Okay. And when you ring in on that phone number, we're going to work through from the top. So all calls enter in at the start and work their way down through the IVR, depending on what interaction you have with the caller. Okay, so if we look at this particular application, we're going to come in, we're going to play a message. We're going to ask the caller if they'd like to participate in the survey. So presumably this is going to be an outbound style survey. And if they say yes, or if they key in DTMF1, we're going to go down this left branch. If they say no, or key in DTMF2, we're going to go down this right branch. We're then going to ask them a particular question. In this case, it's a Net Promoter Score, so give me a score out of 10 as to how you would recommend us to your family and friends. And we're going to log those results in the database and then thank the caller and hang up. It's very, very simple to do. So just to show you that working, just show you how quick that really is, I'm going to ring the number that I've attached to that particular script on my cell phone here. Okay, so it's 510-470-9927, and I'm going to put that on speakerphone.
Hello, this is a call from our company. You recently contacted our call center. We are very interested in your feedback. This survey will take less than 2 minutes. Would you like to participate?
Yes.
Thanks. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is extremely unlikely and 10 is extremely likely, how likely are you to recommend us to your friends?
7.
Thanks for taking the time to respond. Goodbye.
All right, so very, very simple interaction, but actually a lot going on there. We're using, obviously, speech recognition. We've got a whole range of professionally recorded audio prompts that have been uploaded for us automatically based on the use of that template. We could go in and modify any aspect of this call flow, which I'll show you in a second. But before I do that, I just want to show you how the answer has been written into the database. So once we captured that Net Promoter Score here, we scroll down and we actually wrote it down into the database. So that database, just like in older versions of Studio, is done as a data store. So if we go up to Connect, and go up to Global and go over to Data Stores, you'll see that some data stores have automatically been created for us. So there's our NPS results data store. And if I click on that, you'll see that there is my call record. So there is the unique call identifier. So every call that comes into Tropo, we attach a unique call identifier to it. It'll tell you which script actually wrote to this data store, the time at which it was written, the customer ID that was passed in, the customer name, which in this case was not set, the ANI of the person who rang in, so there's my number, my age, again that wasn't set, my age group not set, and then my actual score. So there it is, the NPS score of 7, which we captured using speech recognition. Okay, so if we wanted to modify this particular script that we have created, I could just click on any node and I could insert new nodes into the canvas, or I could change the current node that we have here. I could also unlink the node and delete them. So if we wanted to insert a node above this, maybe we wanted to insert a new type of functionality into the survey, we could just click on that and then click on the node type. Now, these are all the node types that are supported in the Tropo version of the platform. Okay, so playing prompts, changing voices, menus for navigation, forms for capturing spoken or touch tone input, just like we saw here in this demonstration, voice recording. Obviously, we can do calendar, time of day routing, distribution routing, decisions that you can do using the expression builder. You can do integration points out into third-party platforms. So if you want to pull information out of your CRM system and so forth, you can do so. Obviously, writing to data stores, which we showed here in this particular example, as well as lots of other things like types of transfers and so on. And one of the other interesting nodes here is Cisco Spark. So we added this recently as a demonstration to Cisco, showing how you could integrate your Tropo with your Spark chat room. So for those who are not familiar with Spark, it's essentially group meeting rooms in a chat-like scenario. So you can create new rooms, you can invite people into those rooms, and then you can actually have conversations in sort of many-to-many messaging environment. You can also integrate that into your Tropo IVR. So if I was to drag in a Cisco Spark node here, for example, I could attach it to a room, and then I could read out the most recent message that has been posted into that room. Or I could capture some information from the caller and post that to the room so that people that are reading that room could see information coming into that room from the IVR. In fact, we do this in our own business here at Inference. When callers ring in on the support line, there is a support room, and all the information about that caller is automatically populated to that room so that we know that a new call has come in, and we can integrate it with our CRM platform to see who that caller is. If we know who their phone number is, or if they identify who they are through their customer number, we can look that up, and all that information is then logged, and we can always go back and review that within the support room to make sure that we're delivering on our SLAs and so forth. So a really interesting idea. We're excited to see what other people use this feature for, but something that you don't see every day in terms of being able to post from an IVR into into a chat environment, and vice versa. Okay, so one of the other big areas to talk about is the fact that everything you build in Studio under the Tropo version is both inbound and outbound. Okay, so if we wanted to turn this survey into an outbound survey, the dialer, if you're familiar with the older versions of Studio, the dialer, which is called Connect, is also available in the Tropo version as well. So the Connect dialer has kind of two forms. We call them campaigns. There's a list-based campaign and an on-demand campaign. The list-based campaign, as the name suggests, is pretty straightforward. You upload a list, and then you press dial, and it rings everybody on the list. And when they answer the phone call, it connects them to the script that you set up in the campaign. An on-demand campaign is when we actually publish a web service to allow you to trigger one call at a time from some third-party platform. So it could be a mobile application, for example, like an iPhone app, or it could be a call now button on your intranet, or it could be an automatic webhook into your CRM system, for example. So we're going to create an on-demand campaign now, so I'm just going to click on the plus button, and I'm going to call the campaign Webinar 2. And when you create a campaign, it's going to ask you what script do you want to trigger. So I'm going to use the script that we created just then, which is called Webinar. And it actually looks at that script and it says, does this script contain any variables that I can pass in when each call is initiated? And in fact, this one does. We can pass in different variables. The three variables here are customer ID, customer name, and customer age. And you could obviously change these to be whatever you liked. This is just from the starting template that someone else has published, but you could obviously build your own. We're going to set the caller ID. We're going to just leave that as it is. The dial time before we give up on the call at 20 seconds, and the thread count, which is the number of simultaneous calls we're going to allow outbound. Keeping in mind you have outbound and inbound, but this allows you to throttle the number of outbound calls that you do. And we can have some redial rules that we set up. In this case, I'll just leave it as do not redial, so we'll just try every call once, and we'll click on add. So what happened just then when I clicked on add was that we actually published, in real time, we published this, this URL. So this is a RESTful API. It's just a simple URL, and it has three parameters that we need to pass in, the API key, the phone number that we want to ring, and the time we want to dial. So the API key is published for us. It's right here on the screen. There it is there. The phone number is obviously the number that we want to call, and the time to dial is optional. So if we leave it out, it will just dial now, but we can actually put a future time in there if we want as well. And there's all API documentation here, so you can integrate it easily into your third-party system. So that's it. We now have an API published that we can use to make phone calls. So if I go back to Connect Now and I actually list my on-demand campaigns, you'll see that my webinar 2 is there, and you'll see that the status is set to new, and I can click on Actions and I can click on Make a Call. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that when we put in our phone number on the Tropo version, because Tropo is a global platform, we actually need to put in the country code as well. So I'm going to put in 1 for the USA, then 415-535-2229, my phone number, and my name, customer ID, I'll put 123, my name is Callan, and my age, put my age, and I'm going to click on Make a Call. So what is happening now is it says the call would be made shortly, and this is now triggering Connect to call the Tropo dialer. So here it is, a call coming in right now.
Hello, this is a call from our company. You recently contacted our call center.
Now, I won't go through it again, but you get the idea. So in the space of just a few minutes, we've obviously built our IVR, we've turned it into an outbound IVR, we've created an on-demand campaign with a web service, and it really is very easy. We haven't written any code at all. In fact, if I wasn't talking so much, the entire process would be done in under 5 minutes. It'd be very, very fast. Okay. Now, just as you would expect, we can have all of the dialer logs, so we can go up to Connect and we can actually look at our status of our call attempts. For example, so in this case, we've made 2 calls, both were answered. So this is set to, you can see the value here is set at 2. We can go up here and we can actually look at our answer rate and a number of call attempts. And again, this is just the same. This is just the same as you'd expect in the regular version of Studio. Okay. All right, so in the spirit of keeping these webinars very, very short, I think that's probably a good place to stop for now. If you want to find out more about Studio on Tropo, there's some details here on the screen that I'll share with you. You can either contact Greg Callanan, and his details are there on the screen, or myself, and my details are there as well. You can also go to our website to find out about pricing, if this is something that you might be interested in. I also want to just give a shout out to the webinars that are coming up. So on the 6th of December, we have our voice biometrics webinar, talking about how we do voice biometrics on Inference Studio. This is quite an interesting area that's getting a lot of traction, particularly in Europe and Asia. Voice biometrics is really taking off, and it is fully supported within Studio. So if you're interested in voice biometrics, please register for that one. On the 13th of December, we'll be looking at plugging gaps in your cloud telephony strategy. So this is specifically for service providers who are obviously taking products to market, whether they be BroadSoft-based products or other products, and looking at how some of the gaps can be filled with Inference solutions in there. On the 10th of January, we're going to run a webinar specifically looking at integration between Studio and CRM systems. So I think it will be Salesforce.com is the one that we'll be using for that webinar, but there are plenty other CRM systems that you can integrate as well. And then on the 31st of January, a bit more of a sort of a macro look at the market and the economics of software as a service as it relates to cloud telephony and call handling. So look out for that one if that's something that's of interest as well. If you're building a business case, for example, and you're looking at how should I calculate the costs and payback periods of a software as a service delivered model. Okay, so I'll just leave the final slide as our contact details, and thank you all for attending today, and look forward to catching you at the next webinar. Mike Gorman from our team will be doing the next one, and I'll be doing the one after that. So hope you all have a good day, and hopefully catch up with you soon. Bye for now.